So I've lined up all of my images. I have my 4 examples of line on the top and my 4 examples of point on the bottom. And I use the smart guides to try to space out and get even spacing between my images. And let's just speak for a minute about other methods that you can do to line your images up into a grid. If you don't have your ruler up on the top and the sides, then go to View and make sure you have Ruler. And once you have your rulers, you can use your rulers to create guides. So I want to create a guide that shows me 1/4 of an inch in from each side of my image. I'm going to go over to my horizontal ruler, and all I'm doing is clicking down with the mouse and holding it down, and it creates a guide, and I drag it out until I can now look at the top ruler to where it says 1/4 of an inch, and I let go. The guides do not print. They're just there for your viewing. And I'm going to take another one and drag it over to this side, and again I want it to be at 12.25. So that's just another thing that you can use to help line your images up. I could use one, drag it from the top, and when I'm dragging from the top, I'm then lining it up with the ruler over here, and put that in the spot that I want. And now my images kind of will snap to those grids, to the guides that I just set up. I think I just messed up my alignment. Okay. I can also use the move tool to just kind of move it very easily. Or sorry, V, and then I could use the arrows on my keyboard to move things up and down if I have the move tool selected. Alright, so not required to use for this because I think the smart guides are really enough, but I just want to point out guides. They can be really useful. You start up a document, you want to make sure that you have 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, whatever it is, margin all around. Go to your rulers, click and drag them down, and form your guides, and then all of your images or text will snap to it. Okay, so the next step is to take our text tool, and we want to type in. So I'm going to select the text tool, and I'm going to go up to my options bar, and I'm going to note this is the font. I have a lot of different font choices here, and each font choice comes with another set of choices, whether it can be regular, italic, bold. We're just going to use regular for now, and I think 24 pixels will be too large. I'm going to start with 16, and I can always make that larger. I'm going to keep it on left alignment. I don't want center, but I do want to change my color. So I'm going to click on the color picker, and I'm just going to bring it all the way down to black and make that color black. And now this is where I want you to type in, do the lines cut or join the space? Is the space active or passive? So what do you think here? I just click and I get a cursor, and I'm going to type in that I think this cuts the space, although I think it is a passive space. And I could commit to this. I could make each one of my lines of text separate, or I could just use the space bar and come through here, and I could say cut and passive, and same thing over here. You get the idea. Okay, so when you're done typing, you can go up here and hit the check mark. You can't move on to anything else. I can't move, or I can't. Actually, you can move, because when you move your cursor down, it becomes the move tool. But I can't move any of my images, or I can't zoom in or zoom out. I can't do anything until I've committed or canceled my text. And once I've done that, let's talk about our layers for a second. I now have a layer that has a T on it, and it shows me the first words. I actually have all of these different layers, and every layer is for all of the images. So each image came onto its own layer. I didn't have to create the layers. Automatically, when I copied and pasted things in, Photoshop created them onto new layers. Now to move the images around, Move tool, go up to the options bar and make sure you have Auto Select on. If I have Auto Select on, I can just click on the image and it automatically selects the correct layer, and I can move that one. I'll go over to here, and notice how it automatically selects the correct layer, and I can move it. If I don't have that on, whatever I move, let's say I want to move this one, I'm not moving this one, I'm moving this one because that's the layer I'm on. So I'd have to figure out what layer I'm on, and one way I can do that is by previewing the layers off and on. So I can click on the eyeball, it turns that layer off, and that one, and then if I even wanted to rename them, I could, where it says layer 2, for example, I just do a slow double click, and then I could call it like green grass layer. And I click over here. So again, all of my images come in separate layers. If I want to move them freely, make sure auto select is on with the move tool, and then that will have Photoshop automatically grab them for you. Notice that text comes in and it's a different looking layer. It has a T and then the first words that are on your layer. So now I would need to create another text layer down here. So again, I just take the text tool, I click it, and I come down, or I click it to select it, and I come down here, I click again, I get my cursor, and I would type in Pierce, and this is a very active space. And again, I could keep moving down the line and keep typing in, does this pucker, does it pierce the space, does it penetrate, is it active or is it passive, so on and so forth. And when I'm done with that, I can go up and commit it. If I need to go back and edit one of my text layers, I'm going to go back to my text, the layer in the layers panel, and I'll double click it. It makes it, it highlights it so it knows I know that I could go and change it. And let's say if I wanted to change my mind and say, no, I think this is actually passive, which I don't think it is, I could go and type that, and then I'd have to commit to it again. So I think that for this practice, just choose a basic font. If I want to change the font, I select the text, and we don't want anything too fancy or script. We want something that is what is called sans serif, so it doesn't have any of the ornaments at the end of the words, and we want it to be large enough that we could read it. So I'm actually okay with Arial for this first practice. So once you're done with all of that, the next step is to save it. And you've added all of your text, so we're going to go to File, Save As, and you might want to save it in that same folder or maybe just directly in your graphic design folder. I would save 2 copies. I would save the Photoshop file, so just from this selection, the top one is the PSD file, and I would call it point line as a Photoshop file. So that preserves it with all of your layers. So you could go back if you made a mistake or if you want to change anything, you will have all of those layers. And then we're going to save a flattened version, and that's going to be for submitting on Blackboard or submitting through the discussion board. And File, Save As, and we'll choose JPEG, the first JPEG option here, which just gives us the extension .jpg. And again, I'll call it point line and save it. When you get this option here, we can really choose high for image quality. That'll be fine, and click OK. And now just to open that one, oops, I didn't mean to hit that button. Sorry, File, Open, and to open up the one that says point line, that is the JPEG. So this is what the Photoshop one will look like. It's going to say it's a Photoshop file, and it has the Photoshop icon. And here, for my computer, this is the icon for a JPEG. I'm going to open that one up. And notice that one opens up, and it only has the background layer. So this one, I can't move it. I can't separate it out. All of the layers are now condensed into one. So that's what happens when we make it as a JPEG. And that one will be fine for submitting for your homework and submitting on Blackboard. Okay? So let me know if you have any questions, and all of these tutorials together should hopefully get you through that first assignment.